Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Kim, and I've been reading several chunky books, but I'm really talking about books like this that are over 700 pages, 2000 pages, and I've been receiving several questions about how can I read chunky books and don't get lost in the middle. Don't quit in the middle of the book. So today I decided to share with you my 5 tips that I use to read a big books and actually love it. So let's start. My tip number one it is read a book from the same author that you already know. And probably you already read something that I was not that big. For example, in my case, when I decided to read the chunky book of the Stormlight Archive, the first one from Brandon Sanderson, The Way of Kings, which is 1,000 pages, it was not my first book that I read from Brandon Sanderson. Before I get into this big series, I read this one. This one is like this edition. It is 400 pages. So for me, I fell in love with Brandon Sanderson, and I already knew his way of writing, his style. So when I decided to give it a try to this book, even though it's different, his style is the same. And I already know that I love him, and I already kind of knew that he won't disappointment. So that's what I decided to pick. So I try to read a chunky books from the authors that I already know, so I'm familiar with the way of the style of the writing. My tip number two, it is set daily reading goals. And when I say this, and when you read a chunky book, it's not like 10 pages because we usually like when we read it's like 10 to 20 pages, but when you read a chunky book, I do read 100 pages every day. So now how I do it, it's hard for me to read 100 pages in like a specific time of the day. Like I feel like okay, it is too much. So what I do is I in the morning, the first thing that I do is I read 50 pages, and then at night before going to bed or any time during the evening I read the other 50 pages. So in total is my 100 pages goal, which is great. So I already know when I go at night, I was like, okay, I already read half of my goal, which I don't feel like I have a lot to read. So I read the other 50 pages at night. And I also like sometimes read even more, but my daily goal, I'm sorry, it is 100 pages. So in that way, I know if I read like 1,000 pages book, I will end it in like 9 to 10 days, which is for me it's very very good. Also, I'm gonna say this because I have a lot of questions about okay, so how do I know that the book is not good and I'm sick about this book? So for chunky books, and this is like kind of like parentheses, I give it 200 pages to give it kind of like the the benefit of the doubt. You know, when you read like a regular book four or 500 pages, usually like 100 pages when you were like, okay, it's boring, bye. But when you read a chunky book, I really recommend to give the benefit of 200 pages before you decide if the book is good or not for you. That was just my 2 cents adding to this tip. Number three, it is, what did I say this? My tip number three. My tip number three, it is take notes. Especially fantasy books that are pretty chunky. It is very common that they have a lot of characters. So sometimes I get lost. You know, like, wait, who's this person? Who's sister of what? His brother of who? So what I like to do, it is, I'm gonna show you this. I just write names at the beginning of the book. Like the names that I see they repeat more like 3 times, I just write the names. And for some reason, it reminds me, it keeps on my brain, okay, this person is this person who was happening this. Now, if you're gonna get like more curious and more like nice, you can start building the biological tree. Like, okay, this person is sister of this, who was father of that. Like, the more you read, the more you get into the book, you're gonna start getting more information from the story, right? So then you can start building here who is who. And that will help you a lot when you go through the story. You're like, oh, yes. So I really, really recommend you to take notes and also like having like highlight things that impact you. Like, for example, here, um, something that he said, I was just writing my feelings. In that way, you are enjoying a lot the story. Like, you're really getting into the point where, like, wow, you invest in your emotions into the book. So for me, it's super key to take notes, to like highlight, to write the names. It's like essential part for me to read chunky books. Tip number 4, it is something that I don't do, but I know it works. So that's when I want to share it with you. Um, if you feel like the book is really chunky and you already have this like barrier in your mind that is like, oh God, it's so long, it's so long. Try to read the book in Kindle. Like, it's something about don't knowing how many pages you have left that has you go through the story easily, even though it's the same amount that physical book, but you don't like realize. So it happens to me a couple of times when I was talking to my best friend and I had a physical book and I was like, you know what, this book is so big, like it's like 1,000 pages, and she was like, oh really? Well, I read like 5 days. Because when you read in Kindle, you don't see how many pages you have left. Like, you don't feel it. Sometimes it's just like the percentage of the book that you have left or the percentage of the book that you are reading. But it's something about don't have to see the amount of pages that it makes it easy. So if you're gonna give it a try to that, I give you this tip because I know it works. It worked for my best friend, and I also read one book on Kindle. I'm not really a Kindle girl. I like way more have a physical book. I like the coaching and everything. But I remember when I read that book, I was like, oh, it didn't feel that much because I didn't see the many pages. I was just reading and reading, and then I got lost in the story was because it was so good. I got lost in time, and I read the entire night, and I didn't feel it. So give it a try to Kindle if you already have this like, this judgment the physical book. And my last tip that I really wanna tell you, which is kind of obvious, but I really wanna tell you, it is choose a book that you really like the genre. So if you're not familiar with classics, let's see, or you never pick a classic, or you don't like classics, it's hard for you, don't come and pick a huge classic from, I don't know, Leo Tolstoy, or like a huge book that you're gonna be like, wait, what? Or something that you're not interested. But if you like fantasy, then pick a book that is fantasy. If you like horror, go and pick the book that is horror. Like, when you read a chunky book, I really, really recommend it because I do the same. It's a book that I already love the genre. And as I said in my tip before, I already know the author. Like, you know what you're getting into, right? Before you invest in so much. And then when you start reading like chunky books, like maybe two, then the third one is be like, okay, now I can try a new genre. And I can try, I don't know, historical fiction. I'm new on this, but you already have this habit. But to start, please, please pick up a genre that you love and read the story, like, the synopsis that we have here. What is this book about? Sometimes, and it happens to me a lot. I used to pick up books just based on the cover. Like, that's how crazy I was. Like, oh my god, this cover is so amazing. And then I was reading the book and I was like, wait, why am I reading this? So please give yourself a favor. Like, save yourself time, save yourself money, and read the synopsis and get familiar with the story of the genre before picking a chunky book. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you like my tips. I hope you use my tips. And also, please let me know below if you have any specific tip that you use to get into chunky books easily. And I will love to read it and I will love to implement because I love like reading your comments. I was like, oh my God, how come I never thought about this? So please let me know below your thoughts, your tips, and everything. And I'm gonna see you next week with a new bookish adventure. And see my cat. I know it's not Halloween. We're in January, but I'm already getting ready. Bye, guys.